Are you wondering when to bring out the pump? Or maybe you are even asking yourself, do I need a pump? And if I am going to pump, when should I start pumping? If that is you, if you are pregnant, and this is your first time breastfeeding, you may have asked those questions. You are in the right place, my friend, because today I am going to be talking about the three clear signs for you to know when your body is telling you, okay, let's go ahead and pump. So, with that being said, please stay with me to the end because I even have a bonus tip that I want to share. I think it's very simple, it's very effective, but I think it helps to relieve a lot of frustration that can sometimes happen, especially if this is your first time breastfeeding. So be sure to stay to the end to get that bonus tip. With that being said, my name is Stephanie Poole. I am a doula and lactation consultant. I specifically help first time moms transition into motherhood like a boss by helping you to prepare for your birth and breastfeeding journey. So, if that is you, if you are pregnant and this is your first pregnancy, then you definitely want to subscribe because there's tons of content here for you to learn from. All right, so with that being said, let's start with why timing is so important. Why timing your pumping is so important. Um, it's important because if you start too early or you don't pump soon enough, it can lead to challenges like engorgement or oversupply or even just you feeling overwhelmed. So it's definitely important to know those key signs to know when you need to pump without overdoing it. And then, unfortunately causing a problem that we just don't want. I don't want you to have to deal with those things. They can get to be pretty severe pretty quickly. It's not something you want to deal with. Hello and welcome. When you join, please put where you are joining from. And any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer. Drop them in the comments, and I will answer at the end of this live. All right. So, and I have my trusty notes here. So let's jump right into hello. Let's jump right into the very first sign that you need to know. Okay, it's time to pump. And that is when you are going to be returning to work. Okay. Or even if you're not returning to work, I'm going to even go so far as to say, you should be timing this for any time when you are consistently going to be away from the baby. So even if you're not gonna work, if you're gonna be traveling, if you are maybe returning to school, if you are, running your business and you've been home for maternity leave and now you're going to start pumping. Hello and welcome. Please leave your questions in the comments, and I'm gonna be doing a live Q&A afterwards. But when you are returning to work, it's super important that you prepare for that by the way that I teach, the method I teach is to not just start ramping up pumping. So if you've been on one of my other lives, you know that your milk supply is based on demand. And so the minute you start sending the signal to your body that I need more milk, it's going to start making a higher volume of milk, right? But we don't want it to get too much. That will lead to some of those problems I talked about in the intro. We don't want that. We want you to gradually start increasing your amount of milk by just doing one extra pump a day. Now, my recommendation is to get that extra pump in the morning. Why? Because your milk supply is naturally higher in the morning because of that milk producing hormone that is at its peak at night. And if you were on, I think my last live, I'll try and put it below. tag it below in this video. But I talked about that, why those night feeds are so important. It's because that hormone prolactin is at its peak at night. And so in the morning, right, you naturally have a higher milk supply. So that is a good time to go ahead and get that extra pump in. Just start with one pump a day, right? And then you're going to save that and put it away. Save it and put it in your stash. All right. Now, I will say this. Let me include this into what I'm saying. You're going to eventually start with that one time a day and then start increasing from there based on the type of coverage that you need. Now, most babies, I know we see on TikTok, even with the ban, right? And now TikTok has been restored. But we see a lot of moms on there and they have tons and tons of milk that they're storing away. You do not need to start storing milk as if you are like a dairy farm. We're not doing that. There are some serious repercussions. There you go. There's some serious consequences that can come with over pumping. So whatever you do, don't start off like 3 extra pumps trying to hurry up and get your milk supply up because you'll have to keep up with that. And that's just, for most people, it's not sustainable. So start with that 1 extra in the morning, and then you're going to increase. Maybe you only need 2 extra pumps a day, right? Based on your milk supply, or maybe you need 3. You're going to continue to assess it as you're saving those pumps, that milk. You're going to see how much are you making and how many bottles do you need to cover while you're away from the baby. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to kind of put in here, this just popped in my head, and I feel like this is important to reiterate in case you have not tuned into the other lives, but you need to understand, sometimes we get in this mindset of like, it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. And in reality, you are a factory, not a warehouse. Why do I always say that? I say that because factories make things continuously. That is how your milk supply is. So when you need milk, your body is prepared to rev up and make the milk. You don't have to worry about running out. That is actually one of the biggest benefits of breastfeeding, is that you don't have to worry about running out of milk. It's not like that. Your body will continue to make as much milk as you need. And so that's why we have to appropriately send those signals to make more milk when we need it, but not too much where it causes an oversupply or an engorgement. All right, the second sign that you need to pump is if your baby isn't latching. So let me explain a few reasons why a baby wouldn't latch. If you have a baby that was born with any underlying issue, right? They might be tiny, or they might have come early before your due date. A lot of times those babies are sleeping. They are tired feeders. They get on, and what I mean by that, what that looks like, is that you'll start to put them to breast and they'll stay on for just, a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, 3 tops, and then they start to fall off to sleep. They get tired really, really early. And so I don't want you to be discouraged if your provider suggests for you to start pumping to give the milk that way versus putting the baby to breast. Why? Because those babies that have underlying issues or that, have come early before their due date, sometimes they need to conserve their calories and not work so hard to feed. Okay, so in those instances, as a lactation consultant, we do recommend, it's okay to go ahead and start pumping. Now, I have this philosophy that I was always taught from my mentor, which was simply the best as far as I'm concerned. She had worked in lactation for over 40 years and started programs. I'm in Michigan, but she started programs for breastfeeding moms at the hospital that she worked at years before in Chicago. So she was well versed in this. And one of her mottos that I still carry on with my patients today is, to feed the baby and protect the milk supply. Feed the baby and protect the milk supply. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because some moms, especially if this is your first time, have this notion of what breastfeeding looks like. And it it can look a lot of different ways. That's important to know. You and your baby, all babies are different, all births are different. There's going to be certain nuances between you and your baby with this pregnancy versus future pregnancies that you have. And so I don't want you to get caught in only thinking that the way that you can breastfeed your baby is by latching the baby to the breast, because that's not the point of breastfeeding. In breastfeeding, with every feed, our goal is to feed the baby and protect your milk supply. Those are our two goals. And as long as we get those two things done, right? As long as you're able to feed your baby and protect your milk supply, that is a successful feeding session. You are successfully breastfeeding. Okay? Um, and so I'm saying all of that to get back to point number 2, which is if you're unable to latch your baby due to any unforeseen circumstances with their birth or health conditions, perhaps your baby has a tongue tie, which is incredibly common, by the way. Some problems that a tongue tie could present is discomfort when you latch the baby, or maybe the baby is unable to effectively suck, right? Because it could affect their sucking ability to efficiently transfer that milk. And so if that is the case, we're not gonna, unravel about it. We're not gonna think, okay, that means I can't breastfeed. You can absolutely still breastfeed. We just need to get you to pump. Okay? So that is the second sign that you need to pump. The first one is if you're going back to work or school, or if you're going to be consistently away from the baby and you need milk to cover, you're going to go ahead and pump. If you are, again, unable to latch the baby, perhaps the baby has some issue preventing you from doing that, or is simply too much of a discomfort. Maybe there's some tenderness there and you're just not able to latch the baby, we're going to go ahead and pump. Okay? All right. For tip number 3, you are going to go ahead and pump if you are feeling engorged, if there is a sense of engorgement there, or you are uncomfortable. What is engorgement? What does that feel like? That is when your breasts are swollen, when you have this feeling where they're about to burst. That is a feeling of engorgement. It can be quite uncomfortable, depending on the level of engorgement that you have, right? And so the way that we treat that is one of the ways to treat engorgement, because there's a whole protocol for it, which I can go over in another video if that's something that you're interested in. But the short version of this is that you are going to want to pump. That is part of the protocol. That will help to relieve that engorgement. And so if you are feeling uncomfortable at all, and a lot of times what will happen is, especially in the first days, let me just kind of paint a picture for you. If you are pregnant and this is your first time breastfeeding and you're wondering, like, okay, what is this gonna look like? Okay, so when you have the baby, you automatically have colostrum there, which is the very first milk that your body makes. Within a few days, usually here in the United States, we see anywhere from 2 to 3. It could be Earlier than that, it could be anywhere from day 3 to day 5. You are going to start to feel the amount of your milk increase, because when you have the baby and you start putting the baby to breast, your body is going to get that signal. Okay, I need to start ramping up, I need to make more milk, and you will start to have an increase. And so very often, some women, I walk into their hospital room and they wake up from a nap and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so, I feel so full. My breast feels so big and swollen and full. And we'll go ahead to help them relieve that engorgement then. That is a sign to pump. If you wake up and you are feeling like, oh wow, I need to go ahead and get a relief, that is the way to do it, is to go ahead and pump. The second time that you'll feel that is if you have decreased. So you've been latching the baby, maybe you've pumped a time or two, and then all of a sudden you pull back. You have to have, just like it's a gradual workup, we talked about in the beginning, where we don't just start revving up immediately, because that can send a sign where your body will go into oversupply. We do a gradual increase, right? To save that milk and allow it to cover for when you're going to be away from the baby. So just like you gradually work up, you're going to gradually work down. You can't do a lot of feeds or a lot of pumps and then just decide I'm not going to, I'm going to skip one, or I'm not going to do it, because that will result in a lot of discomfort, because now your body is revving up like, okay, I got the milk. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. And now you're saying, oh, you know what, we're good, we don't need that milk anymore. Well, you got to relieve that engorgement. So that would also be a sign. Now, before I give my bonus tips, I just want to do a quick recap to make sure that you guys are with me on this page of the 3 signs, the 3 clear signs that you need to pump. You need to pump if you're going back to work. You need to pump if you're not able to latch the baby for whatever reasons. And you need to pump if you're experiencing engorgement, or if you are uncomfortable with a lot of swelling and your breasts are tight and feel like they are going to explode. Again, I can go into the protocol for relieving that discomfort, but the short part of that is important. There's a lot of things to feeling relief and, you know, getting that pain to go away. That is what the protocol is for. But the essential part of that protocol you need to understand is go ahead and pumping. Okay. Now, as promised, I promised a bonus tip for breastfeeding moms, helping with pumping. When you are pumping, you need to have a hands-free nursing bra. So if you don't already have that, if your baby shower is coming up, definitely put that on your registry, because if you plan to breastfeed and if you plan to do it for a considerable amount of time, then stopping what you're doing to hold a pump to your breast is going to be way too inconvenient. And what I like to do with my clients is always help them to do the easiest, best, most efficient um, system, right? We tailor breastfeeding to what is going to be easiest for them. Why? Because you're more likely to actually stick with it longer. If something is, if it feels forced, if it's hard to do, if it's something that, just is not doable, you won't do it. You'll fall off. You'll start in the beginning with breastfeeding and then you'll fall off. And that fall is quick, because as a new mom, you have so many other things. You are recovering yourself and you're learning your new baby. So it's important to have a hands-free nursing bra that you can put on and you can, do other things while you are pumping. Now, I promised that particular bonus, but I'm also going to throw in a second one just because you guys are my favorite. And that is this: when you are pumping, it is my recommendation, and others may feel differently, but in my training, I was always taught that pumping should not be a long drawn out thing. So if when I hear moms say, "Oh, I pumped for 30 minutes," that I really only want you pumping for about 20 minutes. A pumping session should not take a lot of time. 15 to 20 minutes is plenty of time for you to draw out enough milk to save if you're going back to work, or to relieve for any cases of engorgement, or if you're feeling that fullness. 15 to 20 minutes is plenty of time. You should not pump more than that. Why? Because again, we don't want to send that oversupply. We don't want to send that signal to the body to start revving up to make so much milk that it turns into an oversupply. That's number one. And number two, a pump is different than a baby. A baby has their saliva to help just ease that feeding, right? For your breast. But if you're putting that pump on and you're pumping for long periods of time, it could potentially lead to discomfort. And I don't want you to do that. The third reason is because, again, I am very, very big on making breastfeeding doable for you. If you're going back to work, you may not have 30 minutes to sit and pump. You might only have 10 or 15. 10 or 15 is good. Pump and go back to handling whatever task are on your plate to handle. All of these things are very important in helping you tailor breastfeeding to fit your needs. Again, it does not have to look a specific way in order for you to have a successful breastfeeding journey. Everybody breastfeeding journey is different. Some people exclusively pump. Some people never use a pump and only latch the baby to the breast. Do what works for you. I want you to take this information and I want you to, as they say, chew the meat and spit out the bones. I want you to take this information and apply what you know works well for you in terms of how it looks in your day-to-day life, so that breastfeeding is very simple and a no-brainer. It just happens on autopilot. It's just a way for you to feed your baby, but it's not something that you have to overthink about. I hope this is super helpful. Let me just see. Yes, I will definitely put the other video down below. I'll go back and put it in the description. All right. If you guys don't have any other questions for me, I always like to, be respectful of your time. And so you can always check, well, first of all, subscribe to the channel. If you are not subscribed, like, I don't even know. What are you doing at this point? So subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below if you're watching the replay and there was something in the video that you have questions about. Leave the comments below. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. So until then, happy birthday. Bye, y'all.